Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of Sports and Other Things of the Sort. Hello there. Thank you for being here on this historic episode, as it is the first episode of my new little show, Sports and Other Things of the Sort. On this podcast, we'll be talking about exactly what the title says, sports and other things of the sorts. I'm not going to do the pause on the S here. We're going to be talking about baseball, football, basketball, hockey, those last two maybe a little less than the first two. And we're even going to jump into bowling and professional wrestling because I'm a geek and stuff like that. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited that I'm able to realize this little hobby of wanting to be on a podcast of sorts. So thank you for being here today on this first episode. Our first episode is about players' attitudes and salaries. Now, today is December 31st. Yesterday was December 30th, and this topic somewhat spawned from watching the Lions 49ers game that happened yesterday, because there's a player on the team named Brian Branch on the Lions, named Brian Branch. He's number 32, and he's had problems throughout the year with his attitude and with getting thrown out or getting useless penalties in the game. So I wanted to kind of cover players' attitudes, and then also with the salaries thing, that's just been past month kind of action that I've talked about with friends and family and everybody in between about. So the first thing I want to talk about is related to a lot of what the Lions started doing, not just yesterday, but in games past as well this season. Taunting. Why? Why do you need to taunt? Literally all you have to do is what you just did. Run the ball 20 yards, make a 20-yard catch, stuff like that. A common theme you'll hear in this subsection from me is let your game do the talking. And it's a thing you'll hear from a lot of people, actually. You shouldn't have to taunt after a great play. Your play should speak for itself. After you make that 20-yard catch, after you rush for 40 yards on one play, give the ball back to the ref and get back in line. Because you just shut everybody up. A guy that was just saying, oh, you can't run, you can't get by me, you just ran 40 yards by him. That's all you need to do. Especially with football, when you taunt, you give up yards. When you celebrate too much, which is something we'll talk about, you give up yards. It only hurts you to taunt. It only hurts you to do that stuff. Dan Campbell, I believe in the halftime of the game yesterday, talked about in halftime in their team meeting, he said, we have to do the things that don't take talent. So he's not talking about catching the pass. He's not talking about running for more than 5 yards. He's talking about not giving up useless penalties. Not receiving useless penalties, I should say. He's talking about not losing those 15 yards or giving the other team those 15 yards just because you can't handle the pressure of somebody talking to you. Make your play and get back in line. That should be the first thing. And I'll bounce right to too much celebrating. After you make an interception at the 25-yard line on the right side of the field, don't run to the opposite end zone. It's a waste of energy, it's a waste of time, and it could result in you getting a flag. That's so annoying. When you watch a guy get an interception, that's all you need. You just got the interception. Flip the ball to the ref, celebrate while you run off the sideline and the offense comes on. Stuff like that. When you make a three-pointer, don't do a dance halfway down the court. Don't walk back before the shot goes in. Because if it misses, you look real stupid. You've seen those clips, right? Where a guy shoots a three and turns around, and then he bricks it, right? Don't celebrate too early and don't celebrate too much, because it's just a waste of time and energy for everyone involved in that play. So on celebrating, we go to sportsmanship. I get it, especially in professional sports, especially in football and hockey. Adrenaline is running high. You know, it's tough to stay grounded when there's so much going on around you. 13,000 people screaming down at you in an arena. Probably triple that amount when you're in a football stadium, if not quintuple that amount in a football stadium. But be a good sport. If you get hit hard in football, just say great hit or something, or don't do anything. Just don't be stupid. Again, do the things that don't take talent. Don't retaliate after a great football play and punch the guy in the helmet. That doesn't do anything. It only hurts your team, and it probably gets you thrown out. So it's funny that we even have to say those things, but if you're a professional football player and you somehow hear this, please just don't be dumb. All you have to do is take the hit and get back up, because there's more plays after that. Hopefully, unless you get injured, which is highly likely in a sport like football and hockey. And the next thing about attitude, I want to talk about complaining. This is more in basketball. Flopping just makes you look like an idiot. You can complain about the refs. Sure, refs are bad sometimes, and there's no way around it. That's the fun of having a human ref sometimes. It's also the agony of having a human ref sometimes, but I'd rather have human refs than robotic refs. That's just my opinion, and that's a topic for another day. But complaining about it, flopping, trying to get attention, crying, throwing your hands in the air like, how is this not a foul? It's not going to change the call. 99.99999% of the time, the refs are going to make their call and forget about it. Unless you keep harping on them, in which case you probably get a technical and the other team gets to score. It's those things. If you complain too much, you're going to get technical. You're going to get a technical foul on you or something of the sort, like a personal foul, or you're going to get thrown out of the game, and the other team is going to get an advantage, whether it's they get 2 more free throws or they get 15 yards on the play, or you're a star player and you get ejected, Bryce Harper, you're gone. That's one all-star hitter out of the lineup. That's one less guy that we have to worry about as much, right? So, like Dan Campbell said, do the things that don't take talent. I think that's the biggest thing. The 2 biggest things from this subsection of the episode that I think everyone needs to get is let your game talk. Let your game do the talking. You don't need to do anything else except play your game. And the second thing is do the things that don't take talent. You don't need to be able to hit 40 home runs to stay grounded and to stay level-headed, even if a ref or an umpire is more or less playing for the other team. You don't need to do that. You need to get up there. When you get your pitch, you hit it. When you get that pass thrown to you, you catch it. Let your game do the talking and do the things that don't take talent. All right. Next, we're going to move on to salaries. This is something that spawned from a monstrous deal that the New York Mets made with Juan Soto. If you're even a casual baseball fan, you probably know what I'm talking about. In early December, I believe, maybe late November, Juan Soto signed a 15-year, $765 million deal with the New York Mets. That's $51 million a year. People don't make that in a lifetime. So I have a couple of points to this, a couple of things I would want to get to on this topic. The first one, you better be worth it. In my opinion, if you're Juan Soto, and if you're the New York Mets, if I'm Juan Soto, I know what I just got. But I can't cruise. I can't just go on cruise for the rest of my career. You still have to play hard. Because if you don't play hard, first of all, the fans, they're going to turn on you. You won't be a fan favorite anymore. You'll be a nuisance to the fans. Every time you come out to play, and it's like, oh, here this guy goes. He might get a hit, but he's probably going to get out. If you just set cruise. So don't set cruise, Juan Soto. Keep your foot on the gas. And if I'm the Mets, if Juan Soto isn't an all-star, a silver slugger, a gold glover, an MVP, and winning every other award imaginable, in my opinion, the largest sports contract in history that you just sent to Juan Soto isn't worth it. If you're going to pay a guy history-making money, and he doesn't do history-making things, he's not worth it. $765 million is insane. That is $750 million. No one, and I mean no one, I don't care how good you are, no one deserves to make that amount of money. Which brings me somewhat to my next point. Is it really worth it at all? Is it really worth $765 million for 15 years, $51 million a year? Imagine what they could have done with that money if they spread it around multiple guys. Instead of spending it on one guy, what if they spent it on, 10? The Mets have a good team without Juan Soto. They had Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and then JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias were good some of the time. Sometimes they weren't hitting their best, but they were pretty good. They were getting on consistently. JD Martinez less so. Obviously, he was hurt for some of the season. But then you have, Jeff McNeil. You have these other guys there as well that were doing just fine. I mean, they made it to the playoffs. There's not much better you can ask for from a team when they make it to the playoffs. They made it to the playoffs. They didn't get to the World Series, but, they got to the pennant, right? Is it worth spending $765 million on one guy at all? I would rather get 10 guys that could fill spots, that could do what I needed them to do. Obviously, with, roster size and stuff like that, that can't happen. But I would rather that than paying one guy all that money. See, I think the New York Yankees were smart here. The New York Yankees knew they were going to have to pay Juan Soto, an enormous, preposterous amount of money to keep him in New York. So they just said, bye. They said, you know what? That's fine. If he's going, we can get other guys. They brought in Max Fried, a great left-handed pitcher. He signed a history-making contract for left-handed pitchers. And they brought in Paul Goldschmidt, a veteran first baseman. They also have a very young core. Even Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is not that old. They have Volpe. They have Jason Dominguez. They have Austin Wells behind the dish. They have, Oswaldo Cabrera. They have all these guys that are growing as we speak. Sorry for that little pause there. I'm doing some of this from my head. They have all these guys that can fill these spots, that are growing with the game, that are getting better and better and better as we speak. They just needed a couple more veterans to come in, coach these guys a little more, mold these guys a little more, and for about the same, probably less money than the Mets are paying Juan Soto, they have a well-built foundation of a team. I think the Yankees were smart. I think the Mets are risking it all for no reason. You made it to the playoffs. You just needed to fill in spaces, not a space. I don't get paying $51 million a year to one guy. I won't really ever understand that because I'm not getting paid millions of dollars at all. So there's that. But the biggest thing, I think, is, again, if Juan Soto doesn't pan out, that will be the biggest mistake in baseball history, in my opinion. $765 million to a guy that's going to underperform. So for the Mets' sake and for Juan Soto's sake, I hope you do better than you did ever before. Now, there's one more thing I'd like to talk about with salary, and that's nobody should be getting paid $765 million. No one should be getting paid $51 million a year. No one needs that type of money. If you ask anybody and they say, oh yeah, I need $51 million. No, they're lying. You need probably half of that to live for the rest of your life. Unless you're spending it on stupid things, which athletes and celebrities seem to do sometimes. I think there should be a yearly cap on what you can pay guys. I'm talking, you can't pay a guy more than a certain number a year. And I think that number shouldn't be any more than $30 million a year. It's a low number compared to what some guys are getting paid, but it needs to happen. Because if you're willing to pay, why are you willing to pay $51 million a year to one guy? Pay $30 million to that one guy and spread that those other $21 million around to other guys or even your minor league players somehow. Because that's been a problem for a while. People getting paid $51 million a year, though, that's insane. That's not necessary at all. And, you could look at it from a bigger scale, like, oh, this guy's getting paid $51 million a year to hit a ball 30% of the time, whereas a teacher's getting paid $22,000 a year to mold the next generation of entrepreneurs and the next generation of baseball players even. Why is there such a difference? But that's not even the argument I'm presenting. I'm just saying nobody should be getting paid that much. So I think there should be a yearly cap on what a guy can get paid. I don't think it should be higher than $30 million, and that's even a lot. Like I've thought about saying, I don't think it should be higher than $20 million. Either way, I don't think any professional sports player needs to be paid that much money to play their sport. All right, well, that was the first episode of Sports and Other Things of the Sorts. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I do more of these episodes. I hope people enjoy these episodes. Of course, it's kind of just me talking, so maybe at some point I'll get another host on here or just somebody else on here so that it can be more of a conversation. Because I know sometimes, especially you don't know me, I'm not established anywhere in the sports community. So listening to one person talk that doesn't have any credibility, technically at least, that doesn't have any credibility can be boring, and I understand that. But I think anyone who did make it to this point, please leave comments. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, leave comments. I want the community that grows here, if a community grows at all, to be respectful. Because that's an aspect of life that has been lost over the years. And I think we need to get back to it as a society. Social media, we are so quick to criticize and disagree very rudely. And I myself do that sometimes because I read everything on the internet with an angry or sarcastic tone because that's what most people are. So if you're going to leave a comment, if you're going to disagree, do it respectfully. Let's have a conversation about it. If you disagree with something I said, talk about it with me. Don't call me stupid. Don't curse at me because that's happened. Be respectful about it. Be cordial. That's all I'm asking. If you're going to leave a comment, if you're going to put your input, be respectful about it. Be respectful to others, be respectful to me, and be respectful to everyone you meet. With that said, I'm Lucas Stein, signing off from the first episode of Sports and Other Things of the Sort.